who would have been found worthy, or who the Most High would have found worthy to open the book, because the angel was saying the book need to be opened, but there was no one. So they were looking for someone. Now, there are various interpretations regarding the fullness of the script in Revelation 5. However, the fullness is an allegorical form, which is a synopsis that doesn't convey in the physical sense, but requires interpretation of a situation regarded in this visionary form. So it's not an act of happening. This is an allegorical form, in its sense, visionary, to be interpreted. And it therein shows that someone, and the only one that would deem deemingly fit to declare or to carry on the manifested act and will and the power of the Godhead. Because this book is what revelates, it shows, it manifests the power of the Godhead. The term allegory is expressed in the Oxford English Dictionary as a story. It's a picture or other pieces of art that uses symbols to convey a hidden or ulterior meaning. Well, in its simplest and most concise definition, an allegory is when a piece of visual or narrative media uses one thing to stand in for a different and hidden idea. So it's like, a symbol, a token, like parable, substitute, things that would have used to interpret, words, scenery, so things that are used not in the sense as it shows, but the interpretation would carry the benefit. And that's why it's used the word allegory. So it's like a cow jump over the moon as the narrative form when you're going to school. It doesn't mean a cow jump over the moon. Word used as phrase, to establish a situation. So allegory is what describe that established pattern. So it's a sense wherein in allegory form, that words, those sentences, use or need interpretation, to explain that visionary forms. The term allegory, it gives so a broader sense, in many cultures. And one has to look deep into that aspect of context so as to derive to a specific understanding. Prophetically, Revelation 5 is very ideal, in the sense of this allegory form. And it presents its narratives in a parabolic manner. Take the psalmist David, for example, in Psalms 110, when he said, "The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemy thy footstool." The prophet announcement and the clarity that the psalmist desires to deliver, it indicates an handover and rights to the throne at a particular time. Nevertheless, the person he prophetically spoke up was not sitting at his right hand, nor was the psalmist sitting at any right hand when he said, "Sit thou at my right hand until I make thy enemy thy footstool." You, so tell I, whose right hand was David even referring to during this visionary and prophetic point of view, because it was prophetic? Obviously, no one, was sitting at a literal right hand. David was not sitting to have someone by his right hand, nor was he calling someone as his right hand, nor was David sitting at anyone's right hand. So David himself was being allegorical. And, obviously no one was sitting at a literal right hand, but the referred line speaks to say that awaiting for a kingship or a moment of triumph is ahead within the lineage of the great king. And so the psalmist declared a moment wherein someone was to take the baton. Someone, when he said, "Sit at my right hand," it means that that person must be in a wait, or is in wait for the kingship. The prophecy relates to two lords, that's Psalm 110. But I want a man to tell us if there were two physical lords standing in the referred visionary declaration. Man can't speak of any two lords present at the time of the visionary prophecy. In fact, if there were any physical waiting lord, only one lord was made evident in a literal sense, because David did not refer to himself in the vision of a fullness, but a manifestation in time of the coming Christ King, the returned Christ. So all who talk about the literal presence of two persons, where one sits on a throne and the Lamb before the throne, tell them that that is a carnal point of view and not the mere fullness of the visionary form. Some men reason a carnal way, saying that according to Revelation 5, a man was sitting on a throne and a man took the book, and that the man sitting was Rastafari, while the Lamb took the book from him. In this, they claim that there were two literal individuals present in the visionary form. But it's not so, because the parabolical gestures need great interpretation, whereby the eye them can't take literally. Visionary form, it comes in account that must be explained with spiritual understanding. The main reason the Christ Lamb speaks in parables is that he speaks so that he then will not able to understand that which is not to be understood by carnal individuals. So that's why Christ generally speaks to his disciples in a parabolical way, in which way he used analogies also of allegorical form. Now hear my perspective regarding the fullness that continues according to the Psalms 110. David as a prophet relates to the fullness touching the resurrection of the Lamb. This means that he would ascend without kingship, waiting to reveal himself in the glory of the power prophesied as the Christ King. So, one must understand that when he speaks of the resurrection, he speaks of the Lamb, it means that the Lamb will arise. But then, being risen, he should wait for the kingship. Therein then, there was no manifestation and there was no physical fullness wherein the Messiah 2,000 years ago sit as king. And that's why he ascended without a kingship to the Most High God. Let us read Acts 2:30 and 31. He said, "Therefore being a prophet, and knowing that God had sworn with an oath to him," that is David, "that after the fruit of his loins, according to the flesh, he would raise up Christ to sit on his throne. He seen this before speak of the resurrection of Christ, that his soul was not left in hell, neither his flesh did see corruption. Flesh of Christ. The flesh of Christ is a manifestation of the Christ. The flesh that Jesus has was a manifestation of the Christ. The Christ itself, it has no flesh that should see corruption, because it can take on and take off that flesh whenever it desires. So there was no way that that flesh could see corruption. And that's why David prophetically speaks of this resurrection of the Christ, in that he would raise up Christ to sit on its throne according to the flesh. Therefore, this Christ should come and attain the throne physically, not spiritually, but in flesh. I am not quarreling with any man, but I am seeking to understand the upright in fullness regarding the Christ Lamb and the throne.